to the second session of my Gunderholfen solo campaign. This is session 2. I've done a session 0 to create my characters, and a session 1 where one of my characters died in a great opportunity for me to understand what was going on system-wise, I think. I am playing the Abekmi D&D from the 1980s, as collected in the Rules Cyclopedia, playing the Gunderholfen Mega Dungeon. So at the end of my first session, I had 3 adventurers who had headed out to Gunderholfen, which was about 18 miles away. They were more or less led by Talyra, a thief, because Talyra had the connection with a magic user in the city of Longfelt named Balfour. Balfour had offered to pay Talyra and any of her companions to explore Gunderholfen. He was going to pay a certain amount for the first couple of levels and a greater amount for levels beyond level 3. So they hiked out from Longfelt City to the Gunderholfen. Gunderholfen is an abandoned Dwarven settlement in the mountains, or somewhere outside the city, across a swamp. And there were 3 of them: Talyra, the thief; Virago, a fighter; and Grulin, a cleric. They found the entrance that Balfour had alerted them to, where it was being guarded by a couple of hobgoblins. They tried to sneak in. Talyra specifically tried to sneak in. This was sort of an entrance to the cave right here. Talyra had positioned herself here, tried to sneak in using her hide in the shadows, and then move silently. Skills failed at both of her rolls. They had successfully lured one hobgoblin outside of this cave entrance, but the other stood here inside the cave entrance. When Talyra's presence was made known, Virago and Grulin raced in to help her, where Grulin, the cleric, was slain by one of the hobgoblins. And then proceeded some confusing rolls and misinterpretations by me. That's just how this is going to go. I'm learning as I go. I looked at the wrong hobgoblin stats, and when I was rolling against that hobgoblin, it did not successfully get anywhere. And then I ended up rolling off camera, turned off the camera to figure things out. I rolled for Talyra off camera. But what happened was Grulin received a fatal blow. Talyra was able to kill one of the hobgoblins with an arrow, and Virago was then able to kill the second hobgoblin with their sword. So the hobgoblins lay dead, but their companion was dead. And I hadn't really thought about, as I went into solo play, how I would handle 0 hit points. I figured I was just going to run it by the book. If characters were reduced to 0, they were dead. But it was such a shock to have that happen, right in the very first encounter, that I played it out like Grulin was hanging on to life, and Talyra and Virago were able to strip her of her armor and kind of clean the wound, try to patch her up as best they could, and set back out towards Longfelt, leaving behind Grulin's heavier weapons, although taking with them the shield and other equipment. What I did then was I had Grulin roll death saving throws, and she survived the first saving throw. So for the first hex, she was at 0 hit points but alive. And then the second time I made that roll, as they went into the second hex of travel, I failed. So Grulin passed away there, and they said a prayer over her body, but left her body there in the swamp, buried as best they could, but just too much for them to lug back to the city. So as we open on session 2, Virago and Talyra are headed back into Longfelt City and intending to connect with Balfour, their patron. Talyra is distraught. She feels like this is largely her responsibility, and just doesn't know how to handle this death of a companion. It comes from this barbarian community, and expresses their emotions a little bit differently. Although they are very emotional in some circumstances, sometimes they come off as not as warm and compassionate as you might think. And Virago has tried to comfort Talyra, but is trying to do it in a very logical way of saying, Grulin made her own choice to come with us, and this is not your fault. But this is not landing with Talyra, and she is upset. It takes them the better part of the day to, let's see, they have awakened in the morning, and as they have traveled back, it is now evening this is my calendar that I mark off hours on, or watches, 8-hour watches, and they return to Longfelt City. It is nighttime. They are going to come in. Which gate are they going to come in? Yeah, so as they approach Longfelt City, they're really only a couple of gates into the city. They're coming in from the north. They're either going to have to come around to this western gate or this eastern gate. I'm just going to roll to see which one they get to. Number 2. So they come in the eastern gate, find themselves there. They're familiar with the city. They have lived here for a bit, if not grown up here. Talyra is from Longfelt City. That's correct. So the problem is they know they can't really call on Balfour because it's the middle of the night. They're grief-stricken. Virago sort of takes over in this moment, leading Talyra to a place to go. They enter Longfelt City. Virago knows it's up to them to find them a place to stay for the night, and they choose the Silver Flogger Inn, one of the largest boarding establishments in the city, catering to the middle and lower income spectrum. 3 stories high, sports a large stable, run by Talbert, a third-generation innkeeper. Talbert is plump and balding, but has a cheerful and welcoming demeanor. He knows the business inside out and is a great source for rumors in Longfelt. So Virago gets them into the inn. Talyra is virtually catatonic, not speaking. Virago gets them a double room for the night. It's going to cost 2 silver. Goes ahead and pays for a meal and a couple of mugs of ale while they're down in the tavern part of the inn. So here's the Silver Flogger. Balfour's tower is over here. They do as best they can, spending the night. Virago pays for all this. They spend the night. It is not exactly restful, but they do sleep. Virago will recover 1 hit point because they had lost 2 in the battle with the hobgoblin. Virago is sanguine about the battle. Like, they feel like they've heard of hobgoblins, probably seen them from a distance before. This was their first time facing a hobgoblin in battle, and they did all right. It wasn't great. They definitely feel so terrible about their companion Grulin, who fell, but Virago as a fighter, as this like a barbarian background of theirs, their last thoughts before sleep are of the battle, and when they wake up, the first thing they're thinking of is reviewing the battle and thinking of what they could have done better, what they could have seen coming. So they're just trying to learn from this, and they feel okay about it, but they are definitely worried about what else could be in that cave complex. As they enter Gunderholfen, are there going to be more hobgoblins? Is this the tip of the iceberg? Hobgoblins are pretty strong, so if they're seeing those at the entrance, maybe they need to find a better way in to Gunderholfen. The next morning, Talyra is maybe not better, but is rested and feels like she has a job to do. She knows that she probably can't see Balfour early in the morning, so the first thing they do is they set out to re-equip themselves. Well, maybe they don't do that. I think they're feeling pretty good about that right now. They go down to another tavern to eat a meal, a midday meal, and they run into a thief that Talyra has met before in the city. And this is a thief named Genevieve Ferrick. Genevieve is a pretty small woman. She's not very strong, If you were to quantify it, she would only have 1 hit point. But as they eat, Talyra opens up a little bit, and Virago definitely tries to fill in the blanks, and they tell Genevieve what's just transpired. Neither Genevieve nor Talyra is in the Thieves Guild in the city. They're sort of working towards that aspiration, maybe. Talyra was taken under the wing of Balfour, who, as I mentioned in previous episodes, is like very transactional in his nature. He wants to find magic items, and he's willing to pay Talyra to put together these parties to go into Gunderholfen to look for those things, map the area. But he's mostly interested in power and magic because he wants to dominate over his rivals in the city. Genevieve and Talyra, they have a little bit of different individual feelings on why they're thieves. Genevieve is neutral. She is a thief purely out of necessity, I think, and because of her small stature and higher dexterity. That's just something that she, lends itself to her. But Talyra is a chaotic person, very ungrounded, uncentered, doesn't really, have a great center to return to, and she is a thief just because she's a thief and she steals. The three of them are talking, and it's Virago that broaches the subject and asks Genevieve, it says, I think we intend on returning to this place, perhaps tomorrow. Would you be interested in coming with us? We would be happy to split the payment of the mapping with you. Virago is seeing this as in a bit of ways of like their party was hurt and had to retreat, even though they technically claimed a victory. So Virago wants to return and sort of prove themselves. Genevieve feels this and feels this like inclusion in the party, and so she agrees to go. But she notes, I don't have any gold. I stole a couple of silver in this tavern just to buy this meal. I would need armor, and Virago also says you would need some sort of ranged weapon. We should also get you a bow or something. But between Talyra and Virago, they have a few gold pieces, and so they decide that's what they're going to do. They're going to go out and buy Genevieve some armor and a short bow and some arrows. So I'm going to flip over to the thieves in here just because that's the quickest way for me to find this stuff. Oof, man, that leather armor is going to set them back. Okay. Leather armor is going to be 20. Short bow is 25. Oh my God, they can't even afford this stuff. A short bow and arrows is going to be 30. And they pretty much just have 35 between them. Is a bow better than armor? Yes. So they spend 30 gold on short bow and a quiver of arrows. They have a few extra rations from Grulin, so Genevieve can take care of those. As the afternoon wears on, they go to visit Balfour. Balfour lets them in. And Balfour doesn't really know how to comfort Talyra in her loss. It's very much like a performative, like patting of the shoulder, and Balfour is saying, there, don't be cry. He doesn't understand this emotion because to him it's he didn't get what he wanted. So but he knows that other people are hindered by emotions and feelings, and he tries to sense that and says to them, like, in the most sensitive way that he can, do you intend to return to this place? And they say, yes, but we feel strongly that we need to find others to go with us, because if these two hobgoblins could extract such a toll on us, we need more people in our party. Balfour looks around his room. He's in a tower. He kind of casts the fly spell on himself to fly all around the tower to various shelves and things like that, and flies up and grabs this tankard, sort of like a big mug, and comes back down and hands it to Talyra and says, go out, get yourself a good meal, and drink well. This tankard here, is it a tankard, a flagon? I don't know. This tankard will help you as you attempt to recruit some people in your mission. So this tankard is a magic item that basically has the charm person spell built into it. And as it is refilled with drink, it casts that spell anew. So as long as Talyra keeps drinking from it, she's able to cast that spell, even though she doesn't know this is happening. So the three of them set off. Balfour feels a little reluctant to do this, but he does give them 2 more gold pieces so that they can go out, buy some dinner, and definitely buy some drinks. He's eager to have them refill their party, so they head out, this time to a different tavern. Yeah, they go to the Hare and Hound, which is... yeah, it's over here, a little bit behind the Silver Flogger. But they go to the Hare and Hound. The three of them sort of cast their eyes around looking for people to join them, seeing if there anyone that looks like they're ready for an adventure. So that pretty much means not gainfully employed. Anyone that maybe looks a little rough and tumble, but also a little young, because they don't think that they could probably afford an actual retainer here. And what they see sitting mostly alone at a table are a halfling and a dwarf. This is Irwin and Dobahai, characters that I rolled up at the end of session 1. And Dobahai and Irwin are sort of talking to themselves. What Talyra and Virago see in them is something very much that they see in themselves, which is this sort of an ennui, a boredom with this city. Like it looks like they're ready for some kind of action, but they're bored of being in this city. They can see quickly that the two of them have some gear with them. Each of them seems to have a spear set on the table, or like resting against the side of the table where they eat. So Talyra and Virago look at each other. Talyra goes to the bar to get some drinks and make sure that they fill up the tankard that Balfour gave her. They walk over to the table. They ask Irwin and Dobahai, "Is it all right if we join you here?" They sit at one end of the table and they start discussing in, not loudly but not quietly, what they may find in these caverns of this secret Dwarven stronghold that they've been exploring. Irwin and Dobahai's ears perk up. They are curious about what this is, and they say, "Pardon us, we can't help but overhearing. Are you setting out on some kind of adventure?" And Talyra scoots a little bit closer to them, takes a big swig of her tankard of ale, and says, "Yes, I have a patron here in the city who is paying us to explore this abandoned Dwarven stronghold known as Gunderholfen." As she does that, the charm person spell is sort of wafting out of her breath and from this tankard, and the two of them fall under its spell and start listening to Talyra. Dobahai says, "I've heard of this Gunderholfen. It does exist. It is a real thing." I'm mostly saying this to Irwin. Dobahai grew up in the city. He is the son of coppersmiths in the city and was apprenticed to be a coppersmith. It feels to him like kind of a step below like an iron worker or an actual smithy. And he doesn't want to spend his life hammering out copper plates and cups for, just for the common people to buy. He wants something more than this and wants some excitement. Irwin comes from outside the city, but she and Dobahai became friends because they recognized in each other this yearning for adventure. Irwin has been really disillusioned by Longfelt and doesn't really feel the benefits of this large city. Feels like she wants to be out in nature, out in the world, and possibly slicing things up with that spear. So over the course of the evening, as Talyra and Virago tell them about what's supposedly in Gunderholfen, which is all things Balfour has told them, and they fall under the spell, they agree to join them and they agree to split the money from Balfour completely equally. They won't be apprentices or retainers. They won't be retainers. They will be full-fledged members of the party. As they discuss what happened the previous evening, they tell Dobahai and Irwin, "We know we're going to have to approach with some kind of ranged weapons. We know we're going to have to fire some arrows into them, possibly scare them away. Anything like that. I don't think your spears are going to be of much use." Irwin and Dobahai confess each of them has a small purse full of gold pieces. It's evident that Virago and Talyra don't. Would would Dobahai and Irowen be willing to spend some of that money to get some better weapons for themselves? And possibly could they spare 20 gold for some leather armor for their friend Genevieve? So, let's see. They've got 90 gold between them and another like 5 on Talyra. 2 bows and arrows is going to be 60, and the leather armor is going to be 20. I'm going to tell Talyra to... Actually, I'm going to tell Virago to check their charisma. Virago's charisma is 14. Ooh, nice. So, oh no, that's not good. I have to roll under. They're not buying it, Dobahai and Irowen. So they say, yes, we will equip ourselves, but we're afraid we can't spare any money to buy armor for your friend here. Perhaps they'll change their mind when they get to know Genevieve. Dobahai gets a short bow. D6. Irowen does the same. At least they all have bows. The Hare and Hound cost 4 silver for a 4-person room. To sort of convince their new companions of their good intentions, Virago pays for this, and they get a 4-person room. Genevieve sleeps on the floor, just wrapped up like with her head on a backpack, and that's how they pass the end of the evening. It is the 4th day of autumn when they wake up. They gear up. They have some food at the Hare and Hound, a good breakfast. They have rations to take with them, but Virago is now officially completely out of money. They start to walk. I think I mentioned this in the last session. There is sort of a large area in the book of the Longfelt area, but I have shortened this to about 3 hexes to Gunderholfen rather than this rather long journey across Ganfell Swamp. So they head out to Gunderholfen. It's going to take them 2 watches to get to that entrance, and as they walk there, they discuss how to approach it, and they tell of what happened the last time, and they tell that Balfour told them, they share with Irowen and Dobahai and Genevieve, that Balfour told them there are 2 other entrances, and in fact they scouted around these entrances and saw them. Those entrances were unguarded as far as they could tell. Let me roll for the weather. What's the weather like today? A light snowfall or rain here in the autumn. So they discuss, like, should they return to the same entrance or should they go to one of the others? I am numbering these entrances in the book. They are A, B, and C. We're going to call that 1, 2, and 3. And I'm just going to roll a 1, 2, 3 to see which one they decide on. A 1. So as they take this approach, they decide, in fact, not to return to the same entrance, but to check out that first entrance. They arrived there in the evening. Now, on their first evening out here, when they approached with Grulin, they weren't comfortable trying to enter and pass the hobgoblins that night. They decided to camp and approach before the first light, thinking the hobgoblins might not be there. I rolled a random roll, and the hobgoblins were there. So this time they're a little skeptical, and they wonder, should we just go in right now at night? And they all decide, they're all amped up enough that yes, that's what they're going to do. They have a watch left in this day, and that's what they're going to do. There's an eerie silence shrouding the small valley. Partially buried vine and moss-covered ruins protrude from the undergrowth, and carved into the rocky side of the hill face at the head of the valley is a massive snake head. The jaws are spread wide, its huge fangs hang down, framing a tunnel leading into darkness. There's a small trickle of water flowing out of the dark. This tunnel slopes gently up. They see that, and this is probably the best place I'm going to find to introduce the dungeon time tracker, wherever I have mislaid that. So as they approach this snake's head that's carved into, yeah, it frames a tunnel. As they approach this, Dobahai is the only one among them that has infravision and can see out about 60 feet. Of course, the sun is setting. It's not fully dark yet. They approach silently anyway. Dobahai is able to see 3 small dog-faced creatures. They stand on 2 legs, just like all the people do, and their bodies are kind of covered in scales, but their heads are shaped like dogs. They seem to be lurking in the shadows at the back of this room. So our party outside definitely has initiative if they want it, but they discuss, is it worth shedding blood again? Talyra definitely feels a little bloodthirsty and encourages them to come up with there's only 3 of them. There's 4 of us with ranged weapons. Virago, perhaps you can get a little bit closer to the entrance to this cave, and the 4 of us can loose our arrows all at the same time to try to hit these creatures, although they're in the dark. So those 3, Irwin, Genevieve, and Talyra, who do not have infravision, are going to roll with a -2 to their roll to try to hit. Dobahai is going to just roll a normal attack roll, but they take up their positions. They hide in some brush, maybe 50 feet away, aim their bows and arrows, and as well as they can, they time out so that they're releasing their arrows at the same time. Talyra takes aim at one of these dog-faced creatures, rolls a natural 20, and hits it for 4 points of damage. It falls, and with that natural 20, it's just so quick that its companions don't notice for a fraction of a second. Genevieve lets her arrow fly, a 13 to hit their 7. So she needed a 12. She does have a +1 though. So she hits there, that one that she's aiming at, and does 2 points of damage. Does that do anything? Ooh, this one does not fall immediately. Oh yeah, I said a -2. Did she hit it? I did a 12, I rolled a 13, she had a +1, so that was a 14, -2 is a 12, yeah, okay. So she barely hit it. Dobahai rolls flat. I rolled the damage along with that, probably shouldn't have done that. And his arrow goes wide, does not hit the one. Irwin takes aim at the 3rd one with a 16, -2 is a 14, and she needs a 12 to hit their AC of 7. She just... no, she got it. Here's her damage. 2. Okay, so 2 of these creatures get hit by arrows, but still stand. They look over at their fallen comrade and shriek, and the party hears a door open, and this creature, actually both creatures, it looks like, I'm reading out of the book, both of them run through this doorway. So the party now can enter. But what are they entering? Once they get close enough, is there any light here? No. What they see as they enter this first room this is the entrance through which they walked, and there's a doorway. The door is closed. These creatures have run behind it, and our party has approached so quickly that they know the door cannot now be locked. The question is whether it will be lit enough for them to see on the other side. So our party lights a torch. Who is going to be handling that? Irwin takes out her spear. Dobahai also brandishes his spear. They lead the pack. And Genevieve, they've all... actually, Virago's going to lead the pack. No, they're all about equal. Dobahai actually has the most hit points. So Dobahai leads. Virago and Irwin are right behind. Dobahai, because of his infravision, doesn't need the torch light. So I'm going to say Virago. Nope, Virago wants to hold their shield. Talyra holds the torch in the back, hands Grulin's shield to Genevieve. Yeah, so Genevieve's holding the shield, Talyra's holding a torch and a dagger. God, Genevieve and Talyra are in the back with daggers out as Dobahai, Irwin, and Virago approach this door. When they open it, do they find these creatures in that room? Yes. The two creatures are standing there trying to figure out what just happened to their companion, who all of them got hit by an arrow. They're dressing each other's wounds. All of a sudden the door opens and there are 5 people standing there. So, as I mentioned in the last session, I'm doing a simplified initiative. 1 through 3, the adversaries go first. 4 through 6, my party goes first. 1, these dog-headed creatures get to strike first. They see Dobahai and Irwin come in and run at them. Each of them is holding a spiked club, which seems insane. But they roll at a -2? Oh, I'm trying to understand what their THAC0 is. This is crazy. I've never seen that. Okay, going to Big Book of Combat here in the little encyclopedia. Doesn't help me out. Alright, one of them strikes at Dobahai. Dobahai's armor class is a 4. I believe it rolled a 15. It misses, according to this THAC0 chart. Swings wild with that spiked club. The second spiked club comes for... Oof. Is it coming for Irwin or Irwin number 1 or Virago number 2? Irwin. Oh my god, Irwin. This is terrible. 6. Fortunately, I spare my character, at least on this first attack, as this creature misses with its spiked club. Now, all of our heroes set upon them. Dobahai stabs out with his spear for a 14 to hit their armor class of 7 and hits. Here comes that spear damage. 5. That one falls. Irwin takes her spear at the next one. 8. That's not going to hit. So this one dodges out of the way just at the last minute. Virago swings that sword. 17, I believe. No, they don't have a plus to hit, but they still hit that armor class. And their sword is actually a D8 damage. So here comes that damage. They slice this one in half. So these creatures are now perished in this first room of the dungeon. Our party gets to take a breath for a moment. Both in the north and south of this room are alcoves with statues in it. And along the east wall is a door. The statues in the alcoves are clay and are of a snake-headed humanoid. Statues are chipped, worn, and in poor condition. My heroes are wondering, or my party is wondering, about the correlation between these snake-headed humanoids and these little scaled, dog-faced people that they just killed here. And this is where my time tracker comes in. So they spend 10 minutes, relatively, searching this room, looking around at the alcove, and just dusting themselves off and getting ready for whatever comes next. At this moment, they and their dungeon master are regretting not asking Balfour for a healing potion. Although he seems pretty cheap, and that's a pretty expensive ask. So what the time tracker does is that every approximate 10 minutes or time spent searching a room, I mark off one of these things. When a W appears, I roll for wandering monsters, and at the end of these 6 squares, my torch burns out. And then, of course, in the last square, the party must rest for 1 turn. You just rest every 10 minutes of every hour of dungeoneering. Yeah, so in front of them is a door. I have 2 thieves in the party right now, and although thieves have very terrible stats on this, each is going to try listening at that door. Actually, I believe anybody can listen at a door. The thieves have the hear noises. Yeah, I'm just going to play it like Beck Me. They're both going to try to hear noises, and their hear noises score is just a 10%. And maybe between the 2 of them, one of them will get that. 98 for Genevieve and Talyra. 38. Neither of them is aware, of any noise beyond this door. This door, is it locked? It doesn't seem to be. Now, here's a great place where, in the adventure, I see that there's a trap beyond me, and my adventurers did not pick up a 10-foot pole, I believe. I think Dobahai is not very smart. 6 intelligence. I'm just going to try an intelligence check. Dobahai is just going to do an intelligence check just for the heck of it, trying to roll under a 6. No. Dobahai does not remember that they should have packed a 10-foot pole, that these dwarven strongholds may have been trapped by the dwarves themselves or by the creatures who moved in. So my party opens this door. They descend down a very short staircase, and at the bottom is, in fact, a pit trap. Dobahai steps on it, triggering it on a 1 through 3, so a 3 in 6 chance. It flips open. It flips open. Jeez. Dobahai takes 1 point of falling damage as he falls to the bottom of this pit. Virago helps Dobahai up. They are able then to all dodge it. A passage opens to the south. So these are the stairs that go down, and this pit trap opened up right here. Yeah, the passage turns to the south, and they see a door ahead, about 30 feet ahead, but there's really no place else for them to go. I guess in their mind, at least, they have eliminated these guards that stood outside, though they may anticipate more guards on the inside. All of these party members, their just hearts are beating as they approach this door. Once again, my thieves try to listen at the door. They've got a 10% chance of hearing noises. Yeah, okay, a 6. Talyra hears a noise on the other side of the door. It sounds like those creatures gently talking in their own language. Dobahai, as a dwarf, generally dwarves know 5 different languages, presumably because I think they're all based on Dwarven in some way, but they know Common, Dwarven, Gnome, Goblin, and Kobold. These creatures are in fact Kobold, but Dobahai has a 6 intelligence, which means he is not literate and generally limited to just 1 language. It doesn't really totally make sense to me that he would only speak Common, so I think he knows a little bit of Dwarvish as it was spoken around his home growing up, but he's not fully fluent in Dwarven and definitely doesn't know the other languages that dwarves would know. I'm scratching those out on his sheet. So they hear this language. Words of it sound like Dwarven, but they know enough at this point. It's not dwarves in there. It's more of these dog-faced creatures. They wonder what to do about this. How do they best do this? Yeah, so Virago is going to smash in that door. Their idea is let Virago smash down the door, and then the rest of them will knock an arrow and just let fly at whatever they find in there. Virago is going to smash down the door. It's not locked and it's not stuck. So this is just a dramatic entrance, really. They're just throwing open the door and allowing their companions to attack whatever is standing there. They throw open the door and they see a room that's roughly 20 feet by 40 feet. It's lit by torches on the wall, and there are 2 more of these dog-headed creatures in there that they catch off guard. So here we go. Dobahai fires the short bow at one of them. 18, that's definitely going to hit. And 6 points of damage, completely pierces this one kobold and takes it out. Irwin fires at the next. 5, misses. She doesn't have a good eye on what's happening in that room. Genevieve steps up, fires. 14 to hit. AC 7, hits it. Here comes that damage. 2, the kobold is still standing, so Talyra has one chance to knock out this last remaining kobold. Is standing there before it does anything, and she misses. This kobold shrieks and screams wildly, and then throws its spear at... I'm just going to throw it at Dobahai, because Dobahai is the one that took down its companion. Terrible miss with the spear. Yeah, and then it flees through the door to the east. There's also a door to the south, but this one kobold runs in here. As the door swings open there, do they get anything out of that room? No, I don't think so. Only Virago stands in the room here, and it doesn't have a chance to kind of glance in that door as it swings open and swings closed. So they are standing in this room. They know that there's one of these creatures to the west, but they see another door to the south. These doors are... Oh, sorry, the room actually has murals down the walls. The murals are hard to make out clearly, but they appear to be depicting scenes of dragons fighting. And the doors, both to the west and the south, are splashed with dried blood. This is beginning to look a little grim. I don't think they're taking a full 10 minutes to do this. They don't want to linger in this room in case more kobolds come out. So, no, they do. You know what they're going to do? Virago takes out their hammer and iron spikes and jams this door up. So this door is now stuck. They have essentially pinned this kobold into whatever is through this western door, but they've also pinned themselves in. They know that their only escape is to the north and the west, out the way they came, but they're content with that because they're fairly sure they eliminated any guards there. So Virago does this. Doing that makes a lot of noise. Whatever is in that room certainly hears it, and it also takes up the rest of that turn. And I'm going to roll a Wandering Monsters check where I roll a 1d6, and on a 1, a wandering monster appears, nothing appears. So they get ready to go through this southern door. And they decide they're going to do basically the same thing again. They are going to flip the door open while the other 3 of them... Oh, yeah. So they fired... Between them, they fired 8 arrows at this point. How many have they recovered? 6. Okay, they've only broken those 2 arrows that flew off wildly. Well, that's probably not fair because a couple of them got stuck in kobolds, so... Dobahai, at least... They do the same thing. Those with bows knock the bows, knock an arrow into the bow, and Virago swings the door open dramatically. Nothing is on the other side of this. They find themselves in a very short little hallway that branches off to the right and left, and then seems to turn south over here and north over here, but this is just from their glance. The hallway is maybe, it's a little longer than 10 feet wide. They are going to go left, or westward, I mean. And they take up these similar positions where Dobahai goes first, Virago and Irwin behind. They turn around this corner, and what they find is a small room that just stops right there. And it smells of urine. There are small puddles on the floor, but there are javelins. So there are, in fact, 23 javelins stored here. Looks like this is the kobold's little armory. Those javelins are going to come in handy. I don't really know the basic expert rules on this, but in 5e, of course, a javelin can be thrown with strength or dex, I think. But I'm going to look that up before I proceed with any of this. But that's just to say that, like, my weaker characters aren't going to benefit from these javelins. So Dobahai is definitely going to take 5 javelins. Virago is absolutely going to take 5 javelins, at least. I'm going to look those up to see the coin weight on them. It's 20. Okay. I think I think Virago can take... So that means that one javelin weighs about 20 coins. I think Virago's not going to have a problem carrying 10 of these. And then at least having, you know, some extras. It is a hand weapon that can also be thrown. It is a d6 damage. And it is a medium weapon. Yeah, I believe that just means it can be thrown with dexterity. At least that's the way I'm going to play it going forward. So Virago takes 10 of these. Dobahai is going to take 10 as well. He's very strong. And that leaves 3 more. So they're going to give 1 javelin to each of these people. Genevieve, Talyra, and Irwin. Irwin, I think, has the most. Irwin's going to take the other 3 javelins. Basically, the idea is like they'll just redistribute the javelins as they need them. Okay, so they're faced with this horrible smell, but this room full of javelins, and only a way to go to the east at this point. So they head to the east, and they see that there is a passage that leads to the north. It is kind of a narrow passage, and they see that something extends out here to the east, like another room. There's no door either way, either to the way to the south or to the east. I suppose that inspecting and equipping should take another turn. Yeah, so they decide to look into that room to the east. There's nothing, you know, like they clattered around in the javelin room, so if there was something there, it would have come out. They look into this room and they find that the south portion is piled high with reeking vegetable waste and excrement. None of my characters, as they take after their own player and dungeon master, want to crawl through this waste and excrement in search of anything. The treasure just can't be worth it. So they see this room full of refuse and decide they have to take the tunnel to the north. That tunnel leads up about 30 feet. There's no door there. It leads off to the east, and they're able to see with their torchlight that another 30 feet or so beyond that, there is a doorway. So the hall to the east, they approach, and Dobahai steps up to see if he can see anything down that hallway. And what he is able to see with his infravision is that about 40 feet into it, there seems to be a turn to the south, and there seems to be like a doorway about 30 feet in the northern side of it. And so I'm just going to roll to see, do they go 1 to the north or 2 to the east? They go to the north. So peeking down that hallway, they decide to head up to this northern door and take their chances there. I think at this point, even though they haven't even spent an hour in here, maybe what's on their mind is like, how do we find safe passage around here? But they head up to the north, and that door is also not locked. All right, this time they decide to take a different tactic. With Irwin holding the torch, she is going to push this door open so that the torchlight falls in this room, and Virago and Dobahai are going to step in immediately, brandishing javelins, so that they may either melee fight something that's in there or throw these javelins. So they force open this door. And what they see is a cavernous room. The room is a natural cavern made of dark limestone rock. Water drips down from the ceiling and trickles down the walls. And there's a deep pit that is about 10 feet across in either direction. There are 2 kobolds standing guard on either side of the pit, watching to the north. So they don't actually see or expect adventurers or anyone coming from this southern door. So once again, my party has the jump on them. Dobahai throws a javelin at one of these kobolds. It has a 7 AC, as I recall, and that hits. Javelin is d6, does 2 damage, takes out that kobold. And Virago throws their javelin, 3, misses horribly, and that javelin is just going to go off like it is gone. This necessitates Virago kind of ducking so that Talyra can come in the room. I'm wishing I had like a flatter surface to roll this on. Talyra pokes in, shoots her bow. Natural 20. Talyra is coming in clutch right here. But 1 point though, this kobold is still alive. She shouts to Genevieve. Genevieve takes aim, fires, 4, misses. So this kobold is hit, and I am, at this point, going to look up the morale of a kobold, because I can't see why this kobold would keep hanging around alone as 5 people just ran in. The morale is a 6 or an 8. So the way morale works in basic D&D is that you roll 2 of these, and if you beat it, it runs. This kobold takes an arrow and runs off to the north. Is it screaming? Yes, it is screaming. So they know that there's some chance that other people are being alerted, other kobolds are being alerted at this point. And looking up a couple of things here. First of all, what's the number appearing of a kobold? In other words, like, would there be a whole bunch of them that maybe appear? Number appearing is 4d4 or 1d6 times 10. Reroll a cracked die there. So I've got a number in my head of how many might possibly show up, but I also wanted to see its movement, which is 90, 30, so it can get, so it can get pretty far, but everyone can still get a shot off because of the way this cave is oriented, which I can draw in a second. But I wanted to look at range on those things. Yeah, the javelin's got a 30, 60, 90 range. And I'm sure a short bow has something like that. Yeah, 50, 100. Okay, great. Here it all comes again. Dobahai chucks another javelin. Natural 20. He's going to take out this guy. Yep. Javelin hits this kobold. It yells, but it just goes silent all of a sudden. Can Dobahai recover that one javelin? Because he cannot recover the other one. No. Okay, his javelins are gone. So he's down to 8. Virago is able to reclaim their javelin. Iarwen did not actually attack in that. Talyra missed really badly, so is now down 1 arrow. Genevieve, is Genevieve able to grab their arrow? Yes. Genevieve's still breaking even on the arrows front. But what they find as they get into this area is like a cave system. And they see that beyond this trap, this cave opens up both to the east and to the west. It actually goes in this direction, sort of over these things. This kobold is kind of fallen right here up against the wall. Yeah, so they're presented with a pretty big dilemma here, which is like press on or beat a retreat through all the hallways and get out of here for the night. Now, they could stop in either this room, although they'd have 2 exits. They'd have 3 exits to block because they'd have to monitor the stuck area. They can't secure themselves in the waste pile or the javelin room. They could probably secure themselves in this room pretty well and set up guard shifts. So I think that's what they're going to do. They head back at the end of this. It's going to take them 2 more turns, so I'm going to roll for wandering monsters again. I rolled a 4, so there's no wandering monsters that meet them as they get back to this room. Do they hear any noise in this room behind the stuck door? No. So without like listening up against the door, they don't hear any noise there. So they keep moving to this door, and then they figure they can set a watch, and they know that they've got a trap right here, so it's not a trap that can be sprung again, but there's at least something that would slow down someone coming around this way, and they can guard this door. So they decide to set up watches for the night. That torch burns out, so someone is down 1 torch. I'm just going to take it off of Iarwen's here, and they set up camp for the night inside this room where they first chase the kobolds out to. So the night of the 4th ends, and they're all going to subtract a ration, because that's what they ate today as they were on the road. I knew Genevieve didn't have many rations, but I also knew that like Virago had recovered all of Grulin's rations. So that's where they end it. They spend the night in here and they set up watch. so that they have shifts, so that they're all able to get a night's sleep. And yeah, who's down? Virago has not taken a hit today and is able to come back up to full HP. Dobahai did take a fall, but with his rest can come back up to 5. Genevieve luckily did not take a hit. They have 1. Yeah, and is there anything that they have recovered from these kobolds? Because they do spend that time searching them. There is some treasure as they have searched these kobolds' bodies. They get 16 copper pieces, 2 hand axes. They don't bother with the spears. They do take a short sword off someone. 12 more copper pieces. And 20 more copper pieces. I don't think they worry about the spiked clubs that those first kobolds had. If I knew that one of the kobolds was wearing armor, which I don't think I know, I would say that Irwin takes it. As a halfling, she could probably fit into kobold-sized armor. So no indication in what I'm looking at that they have any armor. But my party is feeling a little bit accomplished. Their heart rates are up. They are scared of the danger around them, but they're a little bit thrilled. They feel like those creatures that they fought seemed a little bit monstrous to them. They certainly attacked back. They didn't attempt to communicate or anything like that. And they're justifying their own actions a little bit. But Dobahai is starting to feel this like dwarven pride of like these, this is the settlement of my ancestors, and these dog creatures took it over and urinated everywhere and left a pile of excrement and rotting vegetable waste in it, and obviously trying to justify his own actions, but nonetheless like feeling a little heroic, feeling like young adventurers. I'm going to divvy up this stuff that they found. Oh, it looks like it's not even on the camera, but the treasure, the copper hand axes and short sword. I think I'm going to divvy all that up off camera, and we'll just return for session 3 at another time. Oh, I meant to do one more thing, which is, this is Grulin's character sheet, and I thought there should just be like a ceremonial shredding of the sheet as Grulin fell in the first session. R.I.P. Grulin.